And welcome back to John Bachman. Now I'm Joe Pinion filling in for John. Now the Biden Justice Department continues its crackdown on the Capitol breach protesters. We know they are targeting any and everyone who was on the Capitol grounds that day, even those nonviolent offenders. The DOJ is also targeting military veterans and consider tougher punishment for them because they, quote, overlooked their oath. That's the government's view on Leonard Grupo's case, a retired lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army who served in 4 war zones. He was inside the Capitol for 6 minutes. Even Chief U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell said she was surprised by the Justice Department's position because she believes most Americans would have enormous respect for Grupo's service. Now, she sentenced him to 2 years of probation, including 90 days of house arrest. Joining us now, former senior advisor to the President Trump, Jason Miller. Now, Grupo is among dozens of veterans and active service members charged in connection with the Capitol breach. Prosecutors have repeatedly maintained that their service is commendable, but it made their actions on January 6th more egregious. What is your position? Because we know that obviously the actions of all the people on that day are not created equal, and certainly everyone should be treated equally in the eyes of our justice system.
Well, Joe, you're exactly right. And the fact of the matter is that the Biden Justice Department is really trying to make life hell for anyone who is a Trump supporter. And so when we talk about January 6th on that particular day, they're also trying to treat the same anyone who went inside the Capitol, anyone who committed illegal acts, the same as they're trying to put a standard to people who stayed outside and protested peacefully. And I think that you have to go and actually separate out the two because they aren't all the exact same. People had different levels of things that they're doing. What I'm even a little bit more concerned about is the way then that Congress is trying to persecute and go after people who worked in the Trump administration to try to pull them into January 6th and try to pull them into the Capitol, even if they had no role or anything to do with any aspect of it whatsoever.
Absolutely. It feels a little bit like Lamb Chop's Play Along. This is the song that doesn't end. We've had over 600 people who have been arrested across 40 states. It is one of the largest dragnets in modern history. Certainly the Department of Justice, whether you agree with them or not, is on the case. And now we have President Trump's attorneys, former President Trump's attorneys, arguing executive privilege claims in court, hoping to shield certain documents from being released as it connects to that January 6th committee. We have the U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan casting doubt on those claims. He said this to Trump's lawyers yesterday, quote, "Are you saying the president's notes, talking points, telephone conversations on January 6th, for example, have no relation to the matter which Congress is considering legislation? The riot happened in the Capitol. That's literally Congress's house." Look, I know many things, but surely while Democrats have insisted that President Trump is personally responsible for what happened on January 6th, which is why they tried to impeach him a second time, surely that is not how the law has ever been applied before. And I think that this just kind of shows in many ways the biased approach to the proceedings as a whole.
Yeah, and Joe, you know, the other point when you reference the hundreds of people being arrested and being charged by the Biden DOJ, keep in mind the fact that 4 people who were not charged or not accused of doing anything wrong were Mark Meadows, Kash Patel, Dan Scavino, Steve Bannon, but yet Congress is trying to haul these folks up and trying to tear their lives apart. And so I think there's a big disconnect there and people really see the political activity. Now, with regard to the White House and executive privilege, important for people to know that never before in our nation's history has a current president rejected executive privilege rights from a previous president. So what Biden is doing now is very political to President Trump. And even in the hearing yesterday, the judge did ask the questions of the administration's lawyer saying, well, isn't this overly broad? What actual purpose do you need all this information for? How does this get to the bottom of January 6th? What are you trying to get at here? Now, ultimately, I do think that this judge, who happens to be a former public defender, so you kind of know what direction she's going to go, will rule against Trump in this. It's going to be appealed. But Joe, here's the critical point. This is going to go to the Supreme Court. That's where this is going to ultimately end up. This is going to be the referendum on executive privilege. That's what this is all going to come down to.
Hi, Rob Carson here. If you love watching Newsmax, you're really going to love listening to our new podcast. It's called the Newsmax Daily. I host it, and I give you the best briefing of the big news of the day, top newsmaker interviews, and even, yes, a few laughs. I know it's hard to believe. So if you're driving, walking, exercising, just about anywhere, you can connect with the Newsmax Daily with me, Rob Carson. Find our podcast online or go to iPhone, Spotify, iHeart, Stitcher, and more, and start listening today.